Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have everybody here today. Of course, most of you know me. My name is Christian Harrison, and I am privileged to be facilitating the research seminar series of the School of Business and Creative Industries. And it's great to have been having these seminars over time. And today is not going to be different. And we have a renowned speaker in our midst today, and no pressure. She has been supporting us over time, and this is going to be our second time talking, and she really wants to give us something that we don't really know, and it's about business founders and the use of crowdfunding. Like I always tell everybody, if you can stay away from being in the digital shadow, you can do that. You can put your videos on. Please don't talk, or please remain muted when the seminar is going on. But of course, if you feel better in leaving your videos off, you can as well do that. I try to use the chat box as well. So we're happy for you to introduce yourselves in the chat box. Tell us where you're logging on from. Of course, we have Afsaneh here, Dr. Bagheri, that is at the moment is in Iran. So if you're in another place that we don't know, please, you can also let us know. You can introduce yourself in the chat box. That's always great. Of course, like I said, it's important that you mute yourself while, Kate is already apologizing, but no problem at all, Kate. So it's important that you mute yourself while you're not talking, but it's also important that you know that in case there is a fire alarm in your own house, please ensure that you leave. I want you to be here, but I also don't want you to be here if there's an emergency. I'm in my office at the moment, and I don't think there'll be a fire alarm, hopefully, so that we will not have to stop this meeting as well. But I think that is it on my own side. Like I said, today is going to be very, very interesting seminar, and we'll be looking at something that is so important. It's about business founders and the use of crowdfunding. When we talk about crowdfunding has been used over time. It's becoming a very important asset, really. People tend to use crowdfunding for different things. But as a business founder, as an SME owner, as an entrepreneur, how do we use crowdfunding? How does that help support our business? And we have a renowned speaker in this space. She has published a paper on crowdfunding, but she used the tourism industry as a focus. And of course, this paper has been widely cited and also a very important part of the crowdfunding space. But I would like to introduce you to Dr. Bagheri first. Some of you already know her, some of you have read her papers before, but she's an Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship at the Faculty of Entrepreneurship, University of Tehran. She obtained a PhD from the Faculty of Educational Studies, University Putra Malaysia in 2011. After 1.5 years of being a postdoctoral research fellow at University of Putra Malaysia, she was appointed as an assistant professor at the Faculty of Entrepreneurship, University of Tehran in 2013. She was promoted to assistant professor in 2017, and she's also a visiting professor at the Faculty of Economics and Management at the University of Ferrara in Italy, and also a visiting associate professor at the School of Business, University of Calgary, Canada. She has published over 71 papers on different areas of entrepreneurship, including one of my, one of the things I like, entrepreneurial leadership as well. She has been one of the most cited authors in entrepreneurial leadership, and she has been teaching entrepreneurship and SME leadership for over 9 years. So Afsaneh is a very renowned speaker in this space, and also a very good friend and colleague of mine as well. We have done a lot of things together, we've published together, and we have supervised together as well. So thanks very much, Afsaneh, for accepting our invitation. And I will get Afsaneh start her insightful presentation.
Thank you so much, Christian, for your kind introduction. And as you said, and good afternoon to all. I would like to share my screen first. And do you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, I can see it.
Okay. Today I'm going to talk about why business founders decided not to use crowdfunding. As Christian introduced me, my name is Afsaneh Bagheri. I'm an Associate Professor of Entrepreneurship at the Faculty of Entrepreneurship, University of Tehran, Iran. And you can contact me through this via this email address. This presentation is based on my paper, which is published on International Journal of Hospitality Management. The title of the paper is Deterrents of Tourism Business Crowdfunding, Aversion Decision and Aversion Behavior. I co-authored this paper with Dr. Chitsazan, my colleague, and Koolaji. And my presentation starts with an introduction to the crowdfunding and why crowdfunding is used in different businesses, as Christian said just now. And then I will highlight the research problem, research question, and theoretical background of crowdfunding, specifically in tourism businesses, and crowdfunding definition and application in tourism business, and crowdfunding deterrents, which is the topic of this research. And then I will highlight the methodology, the sampling procedure, and the participants, data collection, data analysis, our findings, and then I will conclude with implications and future research agendas. As you may all know, business creators have long been facing various challenges in attracting financial resources, specifically from the traditional resources of finance, such as bank loans, VCs, because small businesses lack the requirements, the documentations for raising funds for established capital providers, and they do not have the enough experience to attract funds from VCs and other public fund resources. For business founders in tourism, raising funds is even more complex and difficult because of the high risks and uncertainties of such businesses. Therefore, tourism business creators are mostly dependent on their personal small savings and limited informal and public finance resources. And based on the literature, there are some reasons why business founders in tourism do not use other financial resources than the small amount of personal money. Based on the literature, crowdfunding projects is one of the reasons why they do not use other resources, and also the platforms. Also, the literature highlighted investors' participation and the lack of many investors in the market, in the monitoring market for tourism businesses, stop them from using the other financial resources than their own money. And there are not many effective policies supporting enterprises' financial access, specifically in tourism businesses. Based on the literature, most of the previous literatures focused on investors and provided insights on why investors do not participate in crowdfunding. Research on the perceptions of business founders is scarce, and also the context also is based on samples of the context of these studies are based on the samples of context related to developed countries, which are not applicable and generalizable to other cultures and specifically financial cultures and regulations in developing countries, Asian developing countries, including Iran. Therefore, in this study, we focus on one specific research question, and what are the deterrents of tourism business funders to raise funds using crowdfunding? Why they don't want to use crowdfunding for their business and attract the money they need through crowdfunding. I will highlight the literature on crowdfunding definition. In the last decades, crowdfunding has dramatically developed as an effective method to collect a small amount of monetary support from a large crowd of people across many countries. When we reviewed the literature, we found two approaches to define crowdfunding. Some of the scholars defined it crowdfunding based on the components of crowdfunding, or the key components of crowdfunding: the venture creator, the backers or funders, and the platform, crowdfunding platform, which is the website using the internet. Although this is this approach to defining crowdfunding is very insightful, but it does not clarify the specific purpose and the context of crowdfunding, and narrows the development of the concept. The second approach to crowdfunding definition is that based on the main purpose of the method to collect financial support from, let's say, a crowd, a large group of people, and then offer some monetary or not monetary, award or rewards to a crowd of the backers. In addition to collecting the financial support, business creators can use crowdfunding to test the market for their business idea, gain validation for their business idea, and build relationship and collaborations with the backers and supporters. And however, tourism business founders did not recognize the advantages of crowdfunding in gathering funds for tourism businesses that are mostly small, privately owned businesses. And then compared to other industries such as technology and design, tourism crowdfunding projects have distinctive characteristics that increase the challenges of developing crowdfunding campaigns for tourism businesses. In addition to the funders of tourism businesses, investors also do not want to invest to support tourism businesses. Why? Because tourism businesses involve high risks and uncertainties. In addition, the fund-raising target for the project is relatively low and very difficult to achieve. So the investors' tendency to invest in such businesses are very low. And the rewards that investors receive are mostly limited. So they don't want to, participate in this project and also support crowdfunding campaigns for tourism businesses. In addition, the quality of technology content in tourism crowdfunding projects is also lower than most of other crowdfunding projects in other industries. So that because of this lack of high technology, using high technology in crowdfunding, this creates a discrepancy of information between tourism business creators and the investors, and therefore they hinder investors from investing in tourism crowdfunding projects. And what are the crowdfunding deterrents? Crowdfunding deterrents are the perceived psychological and social barriers that stop engagement in crowdfunding by influencing individual decision not to use the fundraising method. As scholars argue that crowdfunding participation decision is a reasoned and deliberate behavior that does not occur automatically and requires a specific personal and social capabilities as well as contextual evaluation. Based on these perceptions, scholars have used different theoretical perspectives, theoretical frameworks to define, to specify, explain the participation in crowdfunding by the funders, both by the funders and the investors. The theory of planned behavior has been extensively used by previous studies to explain the selection into crowdfunding participation by both the funders and also the investors. Based on the theory, crowdfunding averting decision or this fundraising method is the function of interactions between three key components. The first one, attitude toward, the second one, control over, and the third one, subjective norms for crowdfunding participation. This framework was very, informative in explaining why funders do not use this crowdfunding method to raise funds for their business. In the context of this study, attitude toward crowdfunding is individuals' unawareness of the importance and benefits of using crowdfunding, the negative evaluation of using crowdfunding outcomes, and the undesirability of the outcomes. Control over crowdfunding adoption refers to the perceived difficulty of the crowdfunding process and the perceived lack of capabilities by the funders, by the business creators, and skills to successfully accomplish the required procedures for crowdfunding projects. And subjective norms reflects individual perceptions toward the value of crowdfunding for influential people and their desire to comply with those people. And subjective norms create the perceived social pressure that discourage actual crowdfunding behavior, that is participation and using crowdfunding as a method to attract funds for the business. Theory of planned behavior was effective theoretical framework for this research, but it was not complete. So this theory of planned behavior mostly looks at behavior based on personal factors that shape crowdfunding behavior, and does not completely accommodate the contextual difference in the business environment that avert crowdfunding participation. So we used Krueger's, Krueger and al. 2000 decision-making model that incorporates also feasibility construct with the theory of planned behavior. The model describes decision-making in complex and uncertain business situations and provides a better understanding on the contextual difference that shape tourism business founders' evaluation of crowdfunding feasibility. So according to this theoretical model, perceived feasibility indicates how much external business environment that is not mostly under the control of business funders affect their decision not to use this method for the business to collect capital for the business. Crowdfunding contextual feasibility indicates the business funders' beliefs in their access to the required resources, opportunities, and conditions in the business environment for participating in raising funds for tourism businesses through crowdfunding. Therefore, we use this, framework, theoretical framework for this study. Crowdfunding participation aversion indicates the attitude toward participation and control over subjective notes and feasibility, perceived feasibility of crowdfunding for tourism business funders or creators. We use qualitative research method in this study to explore business funders' perceived deterrents of using crowdfunding. And we used explorative and inductive approach for this qualitative method. This qualitative method allowed us to explore the dynamics of capital seekers' deterrence to crowdfunding adoption. We also use multiple case study to better understand the real business context of each tourism business funding method. For sampling procedure, we use purposive sampling and snowball sampling methods. The participants were selected from two sources to maximize variation in our sample. The first one, the first source of our sample selection was tour and travel agencies. From these tour and travel agencies, we selected two informants. The first one is the founder of the business, and the second informants are finance managers of the businesses. And we also included another source of data, which is the experts and the managers in policymaking institutions. That is the Cultural Heritage, Handicrafts, and Tourism Organization of Iran. So we had three sources of informants, two from tours and travel agencies and one from policymakers. From the tour and travel agencies, we had three business funders who did not use crowdfunding or any other new business financing methods. By new business financing method, I mean that they do not use any technologies, new technologies, web-based technologies or internet to attract money for their business, fund for their business or financial support for their business. And we also had 5 finance managers who were highly from the agencies who were highly involved in the financial decisions of their agency, of their business. And we also involved a sample of policymakers, including 4 tourism and travel experts and managers from the CHHO of Iran, who were responsible for providing the capital resources and making financial decisions about tourism and travel business development. For data collection, we use face-to-face and semi-structured interviews to provide a deep understanding of the tourism business funders' deterrence of using crowdfunding method. For data analysis, we use two different phases. In the first phase, after each interview, we coded the interview data, the transcript, and then after all of the interviews had been conducted, we code again all of the transcripts. We coded the interviews, and then we use contrast comparative method to compare and contrast the reasons why these tourism business funders do not use crowdfunding for their business. And based on our findings, we developed a model for crowdfunding aversion behavior that is rooted in business funders' crowdfunding aversion decision. As far as we know, this is the first theoretical framework in the entrepreneurial finance context that used the Krueger's extended model in aversion decision, not in intention. As you may know, theory, planned behavior, and other extended models have been used for intention, entrepreneurial intention, entrepreneurial orientation, that is the roots or the antecedents of the entrepreneurial behavior. But in this study, we used the model for aversion, avoiding entrepreneurial behavior. So crowdfunding deterrents are results of attitudinal deterrents, including the personal deterrents, investors, crowdfunding platforms and projects, and then perceived control over using crowdfunding is perceived lack of abilities to fulfill all of the requirements of crowdfunding, and perceived social pressures, and also perceived contextual feasibility of crowdfunding. So this aversion, this avoiding using crowdfunding as a method of finance for the business is related or rooted in personal, social, and contextual factors. Based on the personal deterrents, we found that fear of failure in attracting the expected fund and responding to a fraud, because they don't want to respond to a fraud. When they use their own money, they do not need to respond to people. But when they use the crowdfunding method, they have to respond to a crowd of people about the return of their money and their investment. And the lack of awareness of crowdfunding platforms. They didn't know even that these crowdfunding platforms exist in the country. And also the lack of trust in external financing resources. They didn't want to trust in their resources, and they didn't trust in crowdfunding method, and even the platforms, because they are using internet. So maybe there are some frauds in the platforms, and they also believe that crowdfunding is ineffective in collecting money for their business, and favorability of available traditional finance raising method, because they were satisfied with the traditional methods and they don't want to try the new methods. And they had also some of the relatives or some of their peers had unsuccessful experiences with crowdfunding. And also the investors were also one of the main deterrents of their decision, high risk of investment in tourism businesses, internet-based and financial platforms, crowdfunding methods, their lack of investors' trust in using new investment methods, and investing in crowdfunding projects where the main deterrents are related to investors. And also crowdfunding platforms and projects, even the platform where play the role of a deterrent, a block. Platform characteristics such as high risks of infringements, the lack of adequate publicity, the lack of adequate technical infrastructures, and fear of business project failure was related to this deterrence of platforms and crowdfunding platforms and projects. And perceived control behavior, control of using crowdfunding related to perceived lack of abilities to fulfill the requirements of crowdfunding, the commitment of crowdfunding, and they didn't want to be accountable to a crowd of different investors. They preferred to, use the old traditional methods of using just one VC and then were responsible to just one source of funding, and perceived social pressure on commonness of financial platforms in Iran and crowdfunding among people in Iran, and also the lack of public trust in crowdfunding, the lack of cultural and social infrastructure for crowdfunding method. And also, I do not want to review all of these, subtitles of the main deterrents, perceived constraints and uncertainties, such as instability of the country, economic conditions, and the lack of government support, new financial methods for crowdfunding, and insecurity of using internet-based financial methods. Our findings have some practical implications. That is for theory development first. Theory development on crowdfunding, aversion, decision, and behavior. We contribute to theory development on crowdfunding, aversion, decision, and behavior by suggesting the personal, social, and contextual factors that determine the formation of perceived deterrents to crowdfunding participation. In addition, we contributed to the model to Koolaji's 2000 and his colleagues' model by adopting it to explain the factors that shape crowdfunding participation aversion rather than intention for entrepreneurial behavior, and provided a context-based view of tourism business funders' feasibility evaluation. For policymakers, our finding may have some implications too. Policymakers intend to develop tourism industry in developing countries, including Iran, may use the findings of this study to develop and implement effective policies and strategies that remove the deterrents and support tourism crowdfunding platforms. And our findings also have some implications for tourism business funders to improve the probability of their success in collecting funds for their business by recognizing the barriers to use crowdfunding and improving their chance of solving their financial problems by developing the capability of using this method, because one of the main barriers to using this uh, funding method was the lack of capabilities. They perceive themselves, they do not have the skills required to use crowdfunding method. And the crowdfunding platform managers can also use the findings of this study to reduce the risk of participation of both investors and business funders by improving the security and technical capabilities of the platforms and ensure the safety of participation in the platform. And limitation and future research agendas. Like any other studies, our study also has some limitations. First, we in this study we focused only on tourism businesses, since the nature of the business may affect funders' perceptions toward deterrence of crowdfunding adoption. Future research using participants from different businesses provide more accurate picture of crowdfunding aversion. Second limitation was a small group of business founders and our sample using the snowball sampling. The findings of our study are not intended to be generalized to other business founders and other contexts. And therefore, future studies using a large sample and quantitative research method provide better insight into crowdfunding aversion decision and behavior. Our research also explored just the antecedents of crowdfunding adoption with deterrents. So we do not explore the mechanisms through which crowdfunding aversion decision are translated to behavior. So future studies can explore the founder's cognition and the decision and effect of this aversion behavior on the business outcomes. Researchers can also utilize crowdfunding deterrents that we found in this study to develop and validate an instrument to measure perceived crowdfunding deterrents and crowdfunding aversion intention among different business founders. This is a project I'm doing with one of my colleagues. We are working on developing an instrument that both assess the aversion intention and aversion decision and behavior in crowdfunding and donation-based crowdfunding and also reward-based crowdfunding methods. And finally, we developed a crowdfunding deterrence framework that allows for further investigations and comparisons of deterrence in different types of crowdfunding platforms, such as donation, reward-based, and other types of crowdfunding methods. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Any questions and comments are welcome.
Okay, thanks very much, Afsaneh, Dr. Bagheri, for the very insightful presentation. It was so good to see everything that you have done. Yes, you can see the work, and this is the first framework, like you rightly pointed out, that has been done within this crowdfunding space, looking at it from the tourism perspective. So that's great, and I think it's good to see how your work has informed. Especially you seem to use the qualitative approach to that, and how it has been able to inform that space. It was surprising as well when you said 13 people also they didn't feel that they needed it. So that was interesting, because within, but I think I'll ask questions as we go along. But the findings are interesting because of within the UK here, I think many people tend to use crowdfunding. So maybe one of the things that we might be saying is maybe the context is very different, isn't it? So maybe in Iran, I think there might be a cultural undertone at play, because most of the developed countries, the likes of the UK, the likes of the US, other countries, crowdfunding is something that many people tend to buy into, not just within the tourism industry, but in almost every sphere of life. People tend to use crowdfunding nowadays. So it's interesting to note that some people, especially in your context, didn't feel that it was worth it as a business. So maybe there might be, for future investigation, whether there's a cultural, whether this is something that is just unique to not just the tourism sector, but to your national context and beyond that. But I think it's something that you might want to consider as we go along. But before we continue with that, I think we have, okay, Dr. Bagheri, do you want to say anything?
I said yes. I agree with you.
Yeah.
There may be some cultural differences between different countries regarding crowdfunding participation. So that's a very good research topic. Maybe we can focus on maybe future research studies.
Yeah, because even looking at it, of course, I don't want to digress further, but looking at it, there was a particular lady, many of us, you might not know her, but I'm trying to recall that. That's Dame Deborah James. She died some weeks ago, and she was able to, but this is charity, but it was trying to raise money for breast cancer. And this is something that, and so many people bought into it. There was so much money raised and all that, but that was just in charity. But here we do, in businesses, in charity, in different things, we tend to use crowdfunding, and people tend to buy it, especially when they believe that the business is worth it. They tend to do that. So I think it's something that is more established within the developed country context. But to be fair, I understand as well, because I also come from a developing country, ideally. So I know the cultural aspects comes to play, especially when you're asking people for money. People don't believe that they should ask other people for money to run their business. So I get it.
But
something.
Charity crowdfunding is different. In Iran, also charity crowdfunding is very common.
Yeah.
But when it comes to business and using the platform, the online platform to attract funds, the tendency of business creators are less, so they don't want to participate in this online platforms.
Yeah.
But charity crowdfunding is different.
Okay, so that means beyond in Iran, they tend to use crowdfunding for charities, but it's not just for business.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but for us here, of course, it's dual, both in charities and both in businesses. We support crowdfunding, but either way, but I think it's a great idea, and it's something that you might want to examine based on culture as well. But it's not just me. I think we have some nice questions here, and I think from Bernard. Bernard is asking, how is the final model related to the information asymmetry that exists in the literature?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a continuation. Okay, let's go with that. So how is the final model related to the information asymmetry that exists in the literature? That means the final model that you propose, very great model, Dr. Bagheri, how does it relate to the information asymmetry that exists in the literature?
The final model, as you can see, adds to the current existing literature based on adding actually 4 components of aversion decision. The first one, the attitude; the second one, the control over behavior over using crowdfunding; and the third one, the perceived social pressures; and the 4th one is the feasibility of crowdfunding. So we add all of this model to the existing literature, and asymmetry or the differences between this model and the existing literature is that existing literature only define the crowdfunding platforms, the projects, and the investors as the main deterrents of crowdfunding aversion behavior. But in our model, we added to the literature many different aspects of this deterrence based on the personal perceived deterrence of crowdfunding behavior. I hope this satisfied you.
Okay, thanks very much, Afsaneh. Bernard, are you okay with that, or you want to add anything before we move to your second question?
Do you want to ask second question?
Okay, I think
that was a very great question.
Okay, I think Bernard is still here, but let's go to Bernard's second question. Well, please, for the other people, if you have any questions, this is the time to ask Dr. Bagheri your questions. So please, you can put it in the chat, or you can also signify by raising up your hand on the Zoom link. So the second question is, if the business founders are exposed to the environmental factors, do you think it will improve the way tourism sector are financed, especially with the high risk associated with the sector?
Yes.
So if the business, yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So no, I wanted to read it again. Like, if the business founders are exposed to the environmental factors, do you think it will improve the way the tourism sector are financed, especially with the high risk associated with the sector?
Yeah, sure. If the contextual factors improve in any country, including Iran, and specifically based on our findings, the laws and then the regulations, rules and regulations regarding the crowdfunding and the security of crowdfunding. So it improves the environment for crowdfunding and it improves the tourism businesses accessibility to financial capital.
Okay, thanks very much, Afsaneh. Is that okay with you, Bernard?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Bernard?
Did I get the question?
It's fine.
Bernard
Okay.
That's fine.
Satisfied with mine? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bernard, for the question. And of course, I'm happy that you're happy with Dr. Bagheri's answers as well. So any questions for Afsaneh? Any questions from any of us for Afsaneh, or comments? It mustn't be questions, it might be comments, it might be feedback, it might be anything you want to ask, anything at all for Dr. Bagheri. It might just be comments, anything at all you can put in the chat. We still have some couple of minutes, so you can put that in the chat, anything you want to ask. That's why Dr. Bagheri is here. She's here to answer your questions.
I would like to welcome all of participant audiences interested in crowdfunding research. If you are interested in this topic, you can contact me, and maybe we can work on a shared research project on crowdfunding and crowdfunding behavior.
Well, thank you very much, Afsaneh. So if you're interested in crowdfunding, please reach out to Dr. Bagheri, because she's an expert in this space. And I know you were talking about trying to make the qualitative study a quantitative study in the future.
Yes.
So that would be good, because I can see that.
We are working. If any of you interested in the project, you can contact me, and then you can contribute in the project.
Exactly. So it's because with this novel framework that you have, it's so important that it becomes more of a dimensional construct, or more of a survey where you can even expand on it and maybe go beyond just testing it within the tourism sector. You might want to go to other sectors to find out, okay, how valuable is this within crowdfunding? And it's only going to get bigger and better, because a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, are going to think of how can we raise money from other people and try to source our business. So I think there is so much you can do beyond tourism. There's so much you can do beyond the Iranian context. So it'd be great to see how this will develop further. It's already been published, so it's been verified, and it's great to see it's been published in a very high impact factor journal. To work with you on crowdfunding. So you have somebody already that is saying, yes, well, we can work together on crowdfunding. So that's good. Any other comments, any feedback? Okay, something is saying, great presentation, thanks. I think it's, thank you very much, Afsaneh, for being with us here. Eda is saying thank you as well. Bernard is saying I have to leave for another meeting. Thanks for an insightful presentation. But thanks, to watch this on our YouTube channel. And of course, you can always engage with this as your free time, because I know some of you have meetings to attend. But it's great to have you here, and thanks everyone that attended. It was very insightful, it was very noble, and of course we have an expert in the house, and thanks very much Afsaneh for honoring our invitation, and we hope to see you at another time. And thank you so much. And on behalf of our school, we're saying thank you. And for those of you that, of course, that are here today, thanks for attending, and have a great day and a great week. We don't have any seminar in the next fortnight, because I know that a lot of people are on holidays. So we are back for the seminars in September. So we're taking a break. So just try to recharge your batteries, and in September, you will see in the next seminar where we're looking at much more, but we're looking at finance in this perspective, because right now we're looking at the cost of living crisis. So how can you manage your finance? So that will be a very important one for you to attend. And it clashes very well with what's happening in the UK at the moment, and of course in the world today. So see you in the next research seminar. And for now, have a great day and have a nice time. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.